Aloha kako. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about throwing exceptions. So let me go ahead and open up Zybooks here, and we're going to take a look inside the lesson. So we're talking about throwing exceptions. So sometimes you want to be able to throw your own special exceptions. You don't have necessarily a predefined exception type that meets your needs. So there's a way in Java to actually create your own exception type. So it's rather simple to do. You just use the phrase, use the command throw, then new to set up the new object exception. And then within the parentheses, you're going to put in the message that you want displayed. So in the example here, they do invalid date. We're going to take a look. We'll zoom in here. This isn't a great zoom, but okay, there we go. So we'll go ahead and start out. So we're looking at this. We're saying is double dot is nan. Nan is not a number of mixed ratio. So in other words, we're scanning in a double, we're scanning in another double. We're dividing one by the other. And then if it comes out to not a number or a zero there, it's going to be a problem. So we hit our play. It's going to go to inside here. We're going to say throw new exception. And that exception is going to have the message mix ratio is not a number, which is a problem. Then we go from that point, and we're throwing the exception here. So we're skipping this, and then we're going down to the catch, and the catch is going to actually handle that. That's going to handle this generic exception, and it's going to print out the exceptions get message, which is going to give us this right here that we created. So when we take this and we try 0 for it, for both of our inputs, we get not a number because 0 divided by 0 when they're doubles gives us a not a number, gives us an exception. It goes down here, and then it comes back with mixed ratio is not a number, which is the message that it took from here when it's instantiating. So that's how that goes. It has some questions in here that are going to test your memory really of just how, like the first one here is testing your memory of the syntax of it. Throw exception, this isn't how it's done. You're going to want to use the new keyword there, and then you're going to have exception because that's the base class there, and then you're going to want the message inside it. And then you look over here and it says which statement outputs only the message of an exception string named except. So then you're going to look, that you've got system out print line, and then after that, you're going to get the again. This just goes back to the syntax that you used up above. So it was the except get message, and then which catch block catches the exception thrown by the statement throw new exception 00 is not a number. So yeah, so you'd have to look in this and see. I'll leave that to you to do. So we get into using exceptions to separate the error checking from the normal code. So the nice thing about this is you can have all of your code that runs up in the try, and then when you come across an error, you can hit the throw, and then you can put all of your exceptions, your catch exception handlers at the bottom of the code, so you can separate the two out. So as it goes through here, it's going to look, it's going to say, hey, got an error here, throw an exception. So it's going to throw the exception, but then you continue with your code blocks and everything else. And then if you have another area where you can throw an exception, throw the exception, and then it just does the catching down at the bottom. So it separates out, keeps your code in one place, keeps your exception handling in another place. So yeah, so yeah, let's see here. If we scroll down a little bit more, yeah, we can just, using the density calculator above, plug in different values, see how it goes. So one thing you may want to do is when you're working with this, you can take this code and copy it and paste it into VS Code as well to play around with it and just see how it works. You know, you don't need to cheat here because you can do these until you get the answers right. But when you're running these, it's often best to look at it on paper and figure out, hey, how does this work? what's it going to look like with these two. And if you don't understand it, you can again copy this into VS Code and then put in, maybe some print line statements that may illuminate, why it is the way it is. So yeah, so feel free to go through and do that. But run these on paper, see how it goes. Notice one thing about it. Let's take. I'll just go through a couple of these first. So 0 and 10 is the values. We go in here and we take in the first value. So we've got mass volume, volume val, and density calculation. So the first two we're setting them up to be 0. So in here, we're checking to see if 1 is less than 0. Then we're going to throw an exception. And then we're going to grab the next one, which is the volume, and see if that's less than 0, or else throw an exception. So when we have something like 0 and 10, that's going to be within the the valid realm. So that should be okay. But for one that's an exception, if we have zeros on both of them, then we're going to have this right here, which should throw us an error. So we're not going to have invalid on either one of these, but we will have density. When it goes to do the calculation here, that should throw an exemption, and that's going to give us an error. So let's go ahead and see. So for 0, 0, what should our outputs be on that? Okay, so let's take a look. It's 0 and 0. We're doing a 0 divided by 0, which is going to give us a not a number, which of itself would not, it probably is going to give us density not a number. And yes, that's what it gives us. Because this itself doesn't cause an exception yet. This is just going to give us, when we're dealing with doubles, it's going to give us the problem that's not a number. So it doesn't actually trigger something. If it was an integer and you were to try this, you would get an arithmetic error. So you would throw an exception. And this here would catch that because this is for the generic, this is for the base class. So all the ones that we have derived from it, like the arithmetic error ones and such, those are derivations of this base class. So they too will respond to this one if it had it. So if these were integers and not doubles, this would actually cause it to, well, actually we'd have to have a try around that, wouldn't we? So if we had a try around that, it would catch in the catch here. So anyways, going back over here, we have a -20 and a -10. So in that case, we're going to go down here. We're going to hit the first one. This is something that you need to pay attention to. So we're going to hit here. This is the volume. The mass volume is the first thing to hit an error. So it's going to go here. It's going to say, oh, we got an error. So it's going to kick out at this point and it's going to go down here. So it doesn't matter what your second input is. The -10, even though, yes, it would set off the same thing, you're not going to get to that point. So you're just going to kick out on the first one and it's going to give the error that's going to say invalid mass. So if we go down here and put that in, we check our answer. Yeah, we're going to get invalid mass. Then we've got 0 and -10. So as you would expect, that would give us the invalid volume. But it's important to understand why this is. So and it has to do with the fact that the first one to throw it, it's going to stop execution. It's not going to execute the rest. It's going to go directly to the catch. So keep that in mind. So multiple exception handlers, as I mentioned earlier, you can have multiple exception handlers in your code to handle different situations. So in here, what they're doing is they're scanning in doubles. So they want a couple of doubles. They want let's see, or no, they're only scanning in one, I guess. So they're wanting to calculate the area. Or wait, no, they have you input the area. And then they're going to try to scan in a double and put it into the circle area. And if it's less than 0, it's going to say invalid area, which it's going to throw the exception for that. So that'll go down here to this one right here. Then circle radius math square root of circle area divided by math.pi, system out print line circle radius. So that's fine. So all this is in a try thing here. So if anything goes wrong here, if you've got 0 divided by 0, then you'd hit an error. But if we were to put in a wrong data type here, if we were to put in, like, let's say a word at that point, when we come down here, we would kick out and get this invalid input. So this is something that's pretty neat. So I've actually taken this and grabbed it and put it into VS Code because I want to show you it's okay to tinker with these things and to try to understand the complexities of this. So what happens if, let's say, we go through here and we don't have, let's say we don't have this catch input mismatch error that would print out invalid input. So we're handling this specific case. For exceptions that we call, when we throw one, we're giving it a message. But what happens if we don't have this catch mismatch exception? That's something to think about. So I'll go ahead and share my VS Code because I put that in there. So we'll take a look at the VS Code, and you'll see here that we have our catch here that catches the input mismatch. So if we put in like a letter instead of a double, it's going to give us trouble right here. So if we were to run this, and if I was to put in, let's say 2, you'll see that it says invalid input. It says invalid input because here it's catching right here and going to invalid input. What would happen if I did not have this at all? What happens if I did not, have this in there? Obviously, when it gets a problem with the input, there's going to be an exception. So the question is, are we going to halt nasty? Are we just going to come to an abrupt halt? Very, ungraceful, or are we going to have it handled by here in the exception? So if you go and you comment that out, and here's a nice little thing about VS Code. If you want to do multiple lines of, to comment out multiple lines or uncomment them at once, you select most of the lines. You don't even have to select the entire line itself. And then do on an Apple keyboard, it would be the command /, or on a PC, I believe it's the control /, and you can toggle back and forth between commenting out areas and not. So that's a nice little thing to keep in mind. So anyways, if we go ahead and we comment this out and then run it again, it compiles it and says enter the area. If I type in 2, now what's going to happen? Because we commented out the one specifically to catch this type. So if we type in 2, boom, we get null. So you'll notice that we have a null message because we're not actually setting the input mismatch exception doesn't have a default message in there for it. So keep that in mind if you are, if you have something like this that will catch other types of errors that you're not accounting for, you'll need to look in here and you'll have to do something like, check if the exception dot get message is null or not, then, handle it accordingly. So I just wanted to show you that even though we're not going to handle specifically that that type, it is going to be caught by the exception base type. So keep that in mind when you're coding. So again, it's going to have you go through looking at multiple exception handlers, answer the following questions. I'll leave this to you to do. And they have an example here where you can calculate BMI with multiple exception handlers. And this one is nice. It's got, it handles in here the input mismatch. So if somebody puts in the wrong number, it also handles the custom ones as well. So, and it puts out the message accordingly. But notice that in the input mismatch one, you have to supply the specific message that you want to, whereas in the generic, when the one that you're throwing using the base class exception, you're just going to use the get message because you set the message when you're calling it, when you're throwing the exception, like invalid height or invalid weight. And then I just realized I've been explaining this without actually showing it. So let me back up there because this has probably been a little bit strange. My apologies. I was referring to this area over, I'd gone back to here and I was talking about the sections in the participation activity. I do apologize for that. This is the BMI calculator and I was talking about over here, we have the catch with the mismatch exception here. And we have the exception here for the generic one, just throw on the fly using the base exception class. So and here we had invalid weight and invalid height. So when you're throwing the base class, you need to do the get message, and it's it's set here, or not set here, but it's set when you throw it. So you just print that out. But for ones where it's like a specific derived class, you're going to need to go ahead and give it your own custom message there. And then moving on down, it's going to have another section or two where you're going ahead and reading in their example, go through it, and then try to add the code into the block that they already have here for you to get the results that they're throwing about up here. And it's based on your knowledge of exceptions that we've just learned. Then again, down at the bottom, we have another three-part question, and you're going to go in here, you're going to start it, you're going to read the instructions, then you're going to go in here and you're going to put your code in here. So it's showing you specifically where to add your code in. So go ahead and make your changes there. Then you check it and go to the next one, the next one. And that concludes our section throwing exceptions section. So if you have any questions, if this hasn't answered any of the questions you might have had when you're going through the material, reach out to me, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you. And with that, we'll go on to section 3.